Hi, Laur. So it was a very useful visit in Norway, I think, because it reminded me of constructive technology assessment I was involved in. The main aim here was to anticipate impacts of technological change early on. This is now implemented through this program on responsible research and innovation, which from my perspective is very radical. And I'm not sure that I realize how radical it is, because what you do, you start to really think through impacts early on, and you change the direction and the nature of the research and innovation process. What was your sense of it?
Well, you might know that I'm a bit of new to this, but in general I agree with your assessment on this. What they were trying to do here is they were, by the way, they were borrowing from the UK.
Yeah.
It would interest you to know that. They were trying to bring in together 4 dimensions, how to guide research and innovation that had been treated separately before. So the basic idea is that you would need to turn attention to the co-production of science, technology and society, and develop better foresight methods, and be a bit more prospective about the whole process, how science and technology produces the society. Then you need to be reflexive about your own assumptions. Then you need to include more stakeholders, and really, I mean really include them substantively, not only formally. And the final idea is that you really need to be responsive to these changes, in the sense that all the inclusivity, reflexivity and anticipation must really feed in to your own governance practices. And in that way I would feel that, you know, the Norwegians are starting to make a headway on this.
Yeah, and I think they had this interesting experience where they changed course because they found out, because they tried to organize this competition.
Yeah, it was for establishing a digital life center.
Yeah, that was it, yeah. And they did it in a traditional way, so asking centers to compete, but then realized that they needed more coordination, and they changed. So they became an active change agent, in fact, not a traditional funder, but they started to influence the process of how this would be developed, the program. It was a very interesting example. And how would it fit with the criteria?
Well, I would say it's a prime example of the institutional reflexivity, because what they realized early on in the call was that you know, it wasn't working, but then they tried to change the rules in the middle of the game. So what they did is they gathered together the bidders, the bidding universities. There were 3 universities, and then they had a dialogue session. So okay, this call isn't working, what are we going to do about it? And in the end what they figured out was that they would split the call in 2 parts. So they would have a joint bid on the networking part and a competitive bid on the research project. So they introduced a mix of competition and cooperation, and also brought in the international experts to evaluate this process and to guide this process. So I would say yes, this is a very neat little example of how you can treat the call as an instrument, use reflexivity to monitor whether it's not working, and alter your course